Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. I want to talk tonight about a topic that relates to one of the vows that students who are initiated into this tradition take, and that vow is to keep Dharmic company. So I want to talk about what that means, and then we can talk about it. It's a question that people have even when they're not initiated, just like, who should I hang out with, and what happens as I'm practicing and I start to change how I look at things and how I experience things, but my old friends aren't really changing in that way. What is going to happen? So what should I do? First of all, Dharmic company does not mean just people who are on the spiritual path that you're on. So there is nothing in this tradition that prescribes or recommends that you only hang out with people in your own spiritual community. That would be actually counter to the teachings of the tradition. The tradition says that your spiritual teacher and your community are gateways to having the same feeling for everyone. So you learn about your equality with the teacher, and you learn to open your heart and your mind to everybody in your spiritual community, and then you can be that way with everyone. There's no sense in which enlightenment or self-realization is about you and a handful of your best spiritual pals. I mean, that would be ridiculous. So the idea is that eventually you're going to be able to relate skillfully and open-heartedly with everyone you encounter. And in that sense, the spiritual community and the teacher are like training wheels, a place where you can practice that. The most fundamental definition or idea of Dharmic company is company that is helping you in some way to relax your karma. So karmas are patterns of consciousness and energy that repeat. They're an aspect of compulsion. All karmic patterns have the aspect of they repeat and they have momentum, and they're difficult, more or less, to stop. So you have karmic patterns of your body, of your energy, of your mind, of your emotions, your ideas, your ways of relating to other people. You have cultural karmas, religious karmas, gender karmas, national karmas, all kinds of karmas, all intersecting, infinite patterns. And the definition of self-realization is that you are unconditioned. So karma is conditioning, and the definition of self-realization, one of the many ways of saying it, is that you are unconditioned. Every moment arises fresh and new, and you are not conditioned by what came before. So those relationships, friendships, partnerships, etc., that are in some way helping you or supporting you to unwind your karma, to become less conditioned, are what Dharmic means, Dharmic relationships. Now, that looks like many different things. It doesn't look like just one thing. You may be dealing with a difficult person. Maybe it's a relative. That's a very common thing. Right? And if you are able to, you might be able to be working with unwinding your karma around that difficult relationship that calls out difficult karmas in you, even if the other person is not. Right. Being in a dharmic relationship does not mean that the other person is being in it the same way you are. So it also doesn't mean that you are just being competitive and thinking you're going to beat every relationship, and no matter how difficult and unfulfilling and unnourishing it is, you have to stick it out because you're going to prove how tough you are. What a tough tantrika you are. There are some relationships that are difficult that aren't our difficulties. But we think we have to deal with the difficulties in that relationship. But really, they're not our difficulties. They're the other person's difficulties. For instance, people who stay in abusive relationships for years on end. Well, it would be possible to have some sort of spiritual explanation for that. I'm being compassionate to the other. I'm developing compassion. Working out my karmas. You could, make up that story about a very abusive relationship. Meanwhile, your energy is just getting sucked out of you, and your practice is deteriorating, and you are simply giving a spiritual explanation for your compulsions. So it's possible to do that too. There is no value put on being in a difficult relationship just because it's difficult and you're trying to prove something about yourself. So that's one kind of relationship that we might have with a person we meet or with our family, something that has some difficulties in it that are actually are part of our karma that we're working out around that other person. Then there are just regular friendships and love relationships. And in the best case scenario, you are having friendships and relationships with people who share something of your values and something of your direction in life. And who can support you and be positive and make the space in that relationship for you to be a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner. That's a very lovely kind of dharmic relationship. That might be someone in your spiritual community. It might not be. But certainly any friendship that you have where someone condemns your practice, condemns you for practicing, tries deliberately to distract you or pull you away from your practice, doesn't honor your unique way of showing up in the world, that relationship is not supportive of anything that you're trying to do. And being in that kind of relationship only is a manifestation of your karma, where you're deepening your karma. Someone can be supportive of you even if they don't understand what you're doing, right? Because that's just an aspect of kindness. When we have friends do lots of things we don't understand, right? But someone who is a good friend will make room for that and will support you in that even if they don't understand it. So if you feel in any relationship that you're being supported and that your practice and your growth as a spiritual person can flourish within the context of that relationship, that you are not being distracted, that your own compulsions have not taken over in the relationship or somebody else's compulsions, then that's a fine relationship for a Dharma practitioner to have. But if you're in relationships where all that is happening, or 99% of what is happening, is that you are acting out of fixation and the other person is acting out of fixation, and there's no respect and there's not a way of sharing values or feeling that you're flourishing in the relationship, you're just becoming depleted or acting out your fixations rather than working them out, that is a relationship that as a Dharma practitioner you should let fall away. You should not cultivate those kind of relationships. You don't need to violently push anybody away. I mean, unless you're being attacked and you're defending yourself. But there's, there's no sense that you have to suddenly cut relationships off or do anything violent or extreme. Because if you are remaining in your practice and being true and consistent with your aspirations as a practitioner, then all of these other relationships that are not useful anymore will fall away of their own accord. And your job is mainly just to let them go. Your second job is, once you become a little more aware and skillful, is not to get into new situations of relationships where they're really just based on mutual fixation and compulsion. Right? We come in to any particular manifestation with a huge, infinite reservoir of karma that's called our sanchita karma. And out of that sanchita, that huge reservoir of karma, the prarabdha karma is what's going to be ripening in any one lifetime. And our job is, we can work with that prarabdha karma because it's what we can see. We can't see the whole reservoir of sanchita karma. We can just see what's manifesting right now. So our job as practitioners is to be working with those karmas that are showing themselves to us in this lifetime. And as much as possible, we want to be relaxing and resolving those conditionings. And as much as possible, we want to be not creating new conditioning when we can help it. Right? Of course, we're just ordinary people, so we're going to create some new conditioning for sure. But the more we go along, the more we can sort of head it off before it gets the better of us, right? And part of that process of not becoming more entangled in our karmas in this new lifetime that we're in is to be skillful in choosing what kinds of relationships we give our energy to and our time. So there's no sense that we're going to be mean to anybody, or sometimes there's some situations where we get into relationships with very sticky, needy people who are going to not gracefully go away. And sometimes we have to, take action. But in general, the best course of action is to just let things fall away when they feel that they are falling away, and just, go like this and just let it happen. That's really the best choice. Understanding that when you're doing practice, and some people who are new sometimes ask me, what are you always talking about practice? What is that? Right? So that's when people are doing individual practice, they're sitting in the morning and sometimes in the evening too, and doing mantra and meditation and things like that. So as we do that practice consistently over years, then all of those karmas just start to unwind on their own. We really don't have to be very aggressive about it. Where we want to put all of our energies into actually doing the practice, and then everything else is just going to happen spontaneously around that. And our job is to let it happen, to not hold on when we shouldn't hold on to things, and to not be afraid of new things coming in when new things are coming in. Right? So the skill that's really involved in keeping dharmic relationships is knowing when the work of your aspiration to wake up is actually being supported in that relationship, either by you and the other person, or somehow by the situation, even if the other person isn't participating. So we all have, a lot of karma with our immediate families, and a lot of times, Brother Bob is not really participating, but we are working with something, right? And then sometimes that's not true. But in any case, and sometimes people have very supportive families. But we have to have, that's where we have to have the skill, is in kind of discerning, is something being supported here that is related to my aspiration to wake up? And if nothing is really being supported there, if you are being digested by the situation instead of digesting it, you need to leave. You need to make a decision to let it go or to leave. It's interesting. Teachers always go on about how you could die at any minute. You only have one lifetime. You're in a human body. You should take advantage of that, and that's all true. And the thing is that we don't want to waste time. We don't want to use our time poorly, but we also don't have to rush. It's enough to just use our time wisely, to use our time to wake up. And that can be time hanging out with people too. It's not just about sitting on a meditation cushion. It's about everything. So in every situation, we're trying to be using that to help us to wake up in some way, to be nourishing, to be supportive, to be part of our practice. So we want to be doing that as much as possible, not wasting big swaths of time where our karmas are just being reinforced. On the other hand, there's no rush. If you die tomorrow, you die tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. You're only going to do so much. You can only do 24 hours of practice in a day, right? And that would, mean you'd be doing practice of the night too. So you just make sure that you're steadily practicing, that you're not wasting a lot of time with draining, unsupportive, and pointless relationships. So they're really, just pointless relationships. The point of them just might be that you're attached to something about it. You're attached to being seen as a nice person, so you don't want to reject somebody. You're attached to being admired, and you're admired in that relationship, so you don't want to leave. But when you stay in those kind of relationships, well, that's really most of what there is, then you're basically wasting your time. That time is lost to your sadhana. It's given to reinforcing your karma. Right? And sometimes it's difficult. Right? Sometimes it's difficult, and there's grieving that goes on. Because you're not just saying goodbye to a relationship, you're saying goodbye to a part of yourself. That karma that you've been carrying around like your favorite sweater for all these years, There's a lot of loss on the path of waking up. Everything is what we need to lose, but we still experience loss. There's no doubt about that. But it's okay. If you are doing sadhana practice every day, you can have utter confidence that anything that gets lost is exactly what needed to go. Right. And you can have confidence that what's coming in is exactly what you need. If you are doing sadhana every day and you are being skillful and not holding on to things that don't need to be held on to, you are going to be so supported by wisdom. Everybody's being supported by wisdom. But a lot of people are being supported, people who are not on a conscious spiritual path or who are not really practicing every day, who maybe they have some spirituality, and that's fantastic, and that's really helpful. But when you're really doing this kind of sadhana every day, then what you get is an opportunity to let go of karma before you live through every single second of it. If you are unconscious in the world, you're just living an ordinary life with no contact with presence, no practice, you are also being supported to let go of karma, but the other way, which is you live through every ounce of it until it exhausts itself. The long, long, long way. Right? And that's totally fine, because this is all just a play anyway. It's not really that urgent. However, it's the play that we are in, right? We don't get to play a different play. So we want to make the most of it so we can have the most rich and free experience. Yeah.
So you said that the long way that karma will eventually exhaust itself. So karmas do exhaust themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. They run out of steam, just like an engine running out of gas. Mm-hmm. So the car's going along. There's ruts in the road, the car's in the ruts. And then it runs out of gas, and the person driving is like, huh. Maybe then they get out of the car to look around, for the first time in eons, Yeah, so it exhausts itself, and then you have to do something different because you're forced to. Mm-hmm. And all of us are having our various karmas that we have being unwound or rewound, depending, at different speeds. Like, some karmas are much more entrenched and difficult to work with, and they're not really going to go completely in this lifetime. Other ones are going to go much more quickly. It depends. But I can tell you from my own experience, I've said this so many times before, that I never expected any of this to happen for myself. I just really, my only method was just doing practice every day. That's it. And from that, just an enormous change happened. Right? I didn't read Autobiography of a Yogi till I was in my 40s. I didn't really have those kind of ideas. Right? I just loved doing sadhana. And everything that fell away just was like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, what? Kind of like that, right? But I let it go. And I think the reason is I just have always had total confidence in this. From the minute I started practicing, I just had total confidence in it. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew this was it, what I should be doing. It's not that there aren't other ways and other practices, but for me, this was it. And I just never had a moment doubt about what I was doing. I doubted whether I was doing it well, but that kind of confidence can take you so far very far. Because then whatever happens, you're willing to work with it. You're not trying to stop things from happening or make things happen. You're willing to go along with it. And that's very, very important, to let yourself accompany the change, be in partnership with the changes that are happening instead of trying to control everything. And making the hard decisions about how your life is going to look. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions. Sometimes the decisions are made for you. Right? It's very nice to have a teacher because then the teacher tells you what to do. I always appreciated that. I never fought against that. I was like, yes, please tell me what to do. Especially, when I realized the infinity of karmas. I was just, please, someone tell me what to do. So sometimes, and very often, people start the practice and they start to feel a more natural set of priorities start to emerge. Those priorities that every human being has, but that gets submerged in everyday life and our everyday karmas. When people start to feel that emerge, they see the writing on the wall. They see that their lives, external lives, are going to change. Doesn't mean you're going to end up in a loincloth on a mountain. I certainly haven't. But, sorry?
It doesn't sound so bad either. Well, for a minute.
Not unless I can get a cappuccino up there. But your life will change, for sure. And people sense that even in very early stages. And the idea is to just let everything happen. Let yourself desire to wake up more than anything else. Everybody knows that desire is in there. You have to let yourself be swept away by that. And then whatever happens is fine. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.